Check our cameras.
How can you hear me good?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Awesome.
All right, man. So with me today, out of Art of Jiu Jitsu, Master World Champion, 4-time Nogi IBJJF World Champion, 3-time Pan Am Champion, 6-time National Champion, and founder of Hybrid Academy in Orange, California, Rick Arreola.
Hey, how you doing?
Great, man. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you coming out here and making the drive.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I always like coming out to this area, but wow, that was a great intro. I don't think I could say it better. I hope I deliver. Now that
I practiced a little bit this morning.
Oh, okay. It shows. It's great.
Yeah. So you were telling me that you tried having, or you do have a podcast of your own.
Yeah, I do have a podcast. It's called Outside the Gym, at Outside the Gym on Instagram. It's also on Spotify and the rest of other streaming platforms. It's just been a while since I've recorded an episode. I believe the last episode I had was I was interviewing Matt Salinas from 10 Planet Mission Viejo. Shout out to Matt. Hope you're doing well, brother.
What's up, Matt?
Hey. So, but that was the last show I did. And obviously that was before COVID and then just a lot of things going on. Obviously starting Hybrid Academy, building it up and things like that. So just life, wife, a child now. So it's been super busy.
Yeah? Oh, yeah. That's great, man.
Yeah.
I was wondering about that because I was looking down your profile and that must be your business page.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So my RA140, that's my Instagram. I had that Instagram since it first started. When Instagram first came out in 2010, I never changed my name. It was always the same. Yeah. So that's why it seems a little small and kind of like very simple.
Right.
But yeah, then it just kind of just grew from there. When I first started that Instagram page, I mean, obviously, all you can do is just put a picture up, and there was a heart button, a like button, but that's all you had. You didn't have any captions. You didn't have any stories, things like that. Obviously, the platform has evolved way now. But when I had that, I was just documenting my little jiu-jitsu journey. That's actually when I started training. So.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, you got some great videos up there.
Oh, thanks.
I went through quite a bit of them, and I was like, oh, they do more than just jiu-jitsu. You got boxing, wrestling. I want to know about your wrestling because it looks as though you got a long history of wrestling in high school, possibly, and college, maybe.
Yeah. No, I wrestled since I was a kid. I started, but I got real serious about it more like when I was in high school. But when I started doing wrestling, it was in, I believe, my freshman year of high school, and then from there I got like more serious about it in sophomore year. But like I was more of a basketball player before I started wrestling.
Is that right?
Yeah, no, I love basketball. I love ball. So
okay.
I played ball like pretty much my whole life. I love ball. And I was more of a defensive guy. And then when I tried out for the basketball team my freshman year, I got cut from the team.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what seemed like a disappointment was actually a setup for something better. But long story short, when I tried out for the team, it was pretty simple. I mean, teachers were different back then. They gave it to you straight, and you didn't have to worry about repercussions. They told me, hey, coach pulled me aside, says, I like you, kid, but you're just way too short. I can't use you. So I was just imagine hearing that when you've been playing like ball like since the Boys and Girls Club days, But I heard that, and I was just really bummed out because I had huge aspirations to play ball, and then.
Did you end up playing at all in high school, or they cut you that one year and you're just like, that's it?
Mm-hmm. They cut me that first year. And so, I mean, most of those guards were coming in like 5'11". These are freshmen, like 5'11", 5'10", 5'9". Dude,
well, how tall are you?
Oh, man, I was like 5 foot, like 4'9". I was 5 nothing, yeah.
Right.
I was probably like a buck, like 19, buck 25.
You still play?
Yeah, I still play once in a while. Yeah,
okay.
I'll play little pickup games on my own and just like just play around a little bit. But
I tried playing over at the LA Fitness where I'm a member. Basketball, I love basketball. It just doesn't love my body anymore. No, making those cuts. Yeah, I didn't realize how old I was.
Yeah, I know the feeling. No, yeah, I tried to make a cut. Like I played ball. The last time I played ball was probably about 2 months ago, and I tried to make a cut, and then I don't know. It's like I don't have that speed. I cut, and then all of a sudden I fell.
Oh, did you?
I fell. I was like,
did you start to panic and be like, "Oh no, jiu-jitsu! I got to be able to train"?
Yeah, actually, I did. Yeah, I felt like, I don't. I'll just stick to jump shots. I'll just stick to 3-pointers. No, but what ended up happening was after I got cut from the team, I needed another sport to do, and I had a friend at the time. He said, "Hey, you should try wrestling," and I just said I don't know about wearing the spandex and things like that, and but I'm a huge WWE fan. I'm a huge professional wrestling fan. So I thought but I knew what kind of wrestling he was talking about. But I said, I don't know. I don't know if I should do it. And then he just convinced me one day. Well, it was more like a trick. He was doing wrestling at the time, and he what he did was he's smart, very, very smart. He ended up saying, "Hey, look, let's go out for pizza or go get something to eat after school." I said, "Okay, fine." So he called me up to the wrestling room. He told me where the wrestling room was at, which was on the top floor, just a dingy room. And I walked up there to go get him, thinking we're going to go hang out and eat pizza or eat something. And then sure enough, when I go into the room, you just see all these people just wrestling, just scrapping. He comes up to me, puts his arm around me, and then he pushes me in the center of the mat, and then he yells, non-wrestler. And then everyone just like dog piles me. No. And I got twisted up. Somebody like tackled me. I got an elbow to the head, and I was just getting smashed, just dog piled by all these guys. And after it was over, I was so mad.
Yeah, I would think you would be.
Yeah, I was just like taking like a mental note. I mean, I was just taking like a mental note, just like, oh, like, all right, I know you. I'm gonna remember you. And I remember I was so mad that I was mad at him first off.
Yeah.
But I just said to myself that, you know what, I'm gonna come back the next day, and I'm gonna beat up him, and him. That was a plan. I walked back in that wrestling room the next day, and that's not what happened. I got beat up again. And then the coach just said, well, if you're going to be here, then here's some wrestling shoes. You might as well, like, you know, at least learn the sport. So I just started wrestling, and I didn't realize how deep I was going to get into it. And I got very interested in it. And I ended up doing it all through high school. I ended up doing it in college. I wrestled for Santa Ana College under Vince Silva, Oklahoma State All-American. Amazing coach, and also to one of my mentors, a man that I look up to. I look at him like my dad, and then I just kept it up with the sport. You know, me and my younger brother, we wrestled together like throughout our whole lives. Just, you know, in high school, and then he came to watch me during the matches. And then
what was his name again?
His name's Jason Arreola. So he actually has his own wrestling academy. So if you look him up, it's under Arreola Wrestling.
Okay.
Yeah, he has a couple of clubs out in the Tustin area. I believe right now he's working at a Foothill High, but he also has a wrestling academy out in Stanton, if anyone's interested in learning.
I'm interested in knowing, what is it, you said his name was Jason
Arreola.
What is it that he did in your life that you have that opinion of him? How did that relationship develop, and what was that?
My brother,
he was you said he was like a father.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Vince Silva. Vince Silva. Yeah, sorry, at that time my brother.
I'm sorry,
that's obvious.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So Vince Silva with Coach Silva, well, he means a lot to a lot of young wrestlers. To anyone who's ever wrestled for him, we have the highest amount of respect for him.
Yeah, what is he doing? I'm curious that he has that impact like that.
Well, what he did for us was he taught us how to. He taught us how to wrestle like cowboys. I don't know if that makes any sense, but he's an Oklahoma State wrestler, former All-American, and they're the Cowboys. So he taught us how to wrestle Midwest style wrestling, which is kind of like a brawler, but at the same time very technical. He taught us to pretty much how to wrestle like a machine, just nonstop, constant pressure, setting a standard for your life, teaching us, you know, to do things that are abnormal in order to get to where you need to get to in life. You know, he was telling us if you want to be the best in your profession, field, or whatever, you can't be normal. You can't be waking up like at 9 a.m., 10 a.m. You can't expect to show up to practice, you know, once a week and expect to be good. You know, the best are waking up early in the morning, doing running, sprints, lifting weights in the practice room. That's exactly the way we lived our lifestyle. He taught us how to wrestle like collegiate athletes even before we got to that level.
What time did he have you guys wake up and go run or whatever?
Well, most our practices didn't start till the afternoon, but he trained us to have that mentality at an early stage in our career by the time we were college freshmen. So I was already waking up pretty early. My brother and I were waking up pretty early, like around 5, 6, just doing runs, training, lifting, things like that. And usually the weekends are the times where we slept in, but most of the time we didn't, because on the weekends, my brother and I were doing wrestling tournaments every weekend. Like we were wrestling every weekend from adults all the way through like high school, through college, doing opens, things like that. There was like a high school wrestling tournament like every weekend. So when we were in those tournaments, we were wrestling against like adults, we were wrestling against other college guys. So we were doing like double division, you know, like 150s, 160s, things like that. And my brother, he was doing multiple divisions. So it was one of those things where like we were just constantly, and sometimes we'd even wrestle in the final, like whenever like we beat everybody up and then we'd meet in the final. And, but those are the cool things I remember, you know, that grind, just the fact that he taught us how to set a standard in our lives. You know, you should always have a high standard for yourself. You should always do your best in everything you do. don't accept anything less. And a lot of times he would tell us, like, if people get upset at you, or people like find that offensive, or people just, if they talk about you, or if people just have a problem with the way you do things, the way you live your life in that manner, I said a lot of times it's because either they've never done anything before in their life, they've never won anything, or they never ever tried to do something great.
Yeah, you'll know you're doing it right if they say, "You're crazy, man." It's like, good.
Yeah. No, for his story is crazy. Like for Coach Silva, he was a walk-on. He was a walk-on at Oklahoma State, which is like unheard of. Like nobody makes that team as a walk-on. You have to earn that spot, and not to mention everyone on that ladder is deep. They're like, these guys are like state champions. These guys are national champions. These guys are like All-Americans. Dude, his training partner was Kenny Monday. His roommate was John Smith, who's a Hall of Famer, Olympic champion. Kenny Monday, an Olympic champion, that was his training partner. So we were already taught at a very early stage when we walked in that room, the championship mentality to wake up early, do the extra work, come to practice, be a champion in the classroom, and even stay after practice. And we were always the first ones there and the last ones to leave. And I know that for a fact because I was always there, me and my brother, and I was there cleaning those mats before practice started, and nobody was there until it was time to go on our afternoon runs.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a lot of people, men and women, who still have that mentality when they walk into your gym, or do you feel like it's something that's lacking in our culture today, our society today?
Yeah, 100%. I would say lacking in our culture today, but I also feel like the best thing you can do as a coach or even as a competitor or just in general is just to be a good example. Like for instance, like when I'm on the mat, I'll clean the mats. My guys will see that, even before when I had my own gym, I was working for other people. I was instructors for other people's gyms. And, some of the owners weren't on there cleaning the mats. So I was there cleaning the mats and I didn't mind doing it. I love doing it because for me, it's therapeutic. I know it sounds weird, but
it doesn't.
Yeah. It's there. It's therapeutic. And I was developing my own little science, and hopefully if I can get it done, like let's see if I can get this whole thing done. This 1,600 square foot of mat, like let's see if I can get it done in like under like 2 minutes. I was trying that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I used to clean the mats too as a white belt, but I never thought of myself as trying to master it, which I think is kind of cool because it says a lot about you and your mentality, and you obviously learned that from Silva. To take something so small, like if you could be trusted with a mop and do it to the best of your ability. I think that's a quality and a character that not many of us have. It's something that I would like to instill in my own students, and because I really know there's a lot of people who they want to do wrestling or they want to do jiu-jitsu or maybe they want to improve in something area of their life, but don't think about it in that kind of a way.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer, and I learned this from a friend of mine. His name is Chad Parks, a great man. He's a wrestling coach as well, and he said how you do anything is how you do everything. And for me, I believe that how you do anything is how you do everything. So I always believe if you're going to do it to the best of your capabilities, do it to the best of your abilities, because people are watching. People are always watching.
Yeah.
And for me, so when I was cleaning those mats, the guys already knew, and now I'm at the point now where before when we end class, I always say, all right, class is done. Good job, everyone. Fantastic work. I'm ready to go walk up to the mops and the sprayer bucket, and you see people already just beating me to the race to those mops and those buckets, already ready to start to clean the mats. So I've already still instilled that. Like I'm at a point now where I go in there and I try to reach for it, and my guys beat me to it, and they go and they start doing it. No, coach, you're good. We got this, and that's really cool because I do my best to lead by example, and the thing is too is. And I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but when we used to train wrestling, sometimes the heaters would be on. Heaters would be on, and we always wrestle warm and things like that. We don't like to have cold muscles. I don't even think it's good to have cold muscles when you're training, but we always like to have warm bodies when we're training. So we put the heater on. Our coaches put the heater on. So for me, once in a while, I'll put the heater on. But when I started putting the heater on, the students liked it. At the beginning, it was a bit difficult, but now they love it. Now they'll feel it in the temperature in the room. They'll feel it if it's cold or if the heater's not on. They'll get upset and they're like, "Coach, can we turn on the heater, please?" I'm like, "Okay."
You're doing this at hybrid?
Yeah. So they go and they turn it on, And like, so
I'd be afraid of my electric bill.
well, luckily we don't have to cover utilities, thank goodness.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So tell me, so you're wrestling in high school, you wrestled in college, became an All-American. At what point?
Actually, no. I didn't become an All-American in college. My brother was an All-American in college.
Okay.
Me, unfortunately, bufore I can reach that status, sadly, I had a catastrophic injury.
Oh, what happened?
Yeah, what ended up happening was my last year at Santa Ana College, before I was about to transfer out. I was getting ready to wrestle that year. Finally, get a chance to go out there and see what I can do. And unfortunately, on 4th of July of 2010, I believe, I was in Santa Ana and I was with a friend of mine. We were just hanging out, and during that whole time, I literally, in college, my grades were really good. I had really, really good grades. So I was already applying to other universities and things like that, and going visiting trips and just trying to find a place where it's going to be my next home, because I only had 1 year left before I transferred out.
Is Santa Ana College a 2-year school?
Yeah, Santa Ana College is a junior college.
Got it. Okay.
So so it's the next step to getting you to a 4-year.
Okay.
So my grades were really, really good. I had like a 4.0 GPA. I had a lot of wrestling experience under my belt. I was already placing in tournaments, and I was already just applying. And I narrowed my choices down to Boise State and Columbia, which is an Ivy League school.
Yeah.
So I was really excited, I chose Columbia, obviously. All my professors say, go Columbia.
They were planning on picking you up as a scholarship on athletic scholarship?
Yes.
And what happened?
Well, what ended up happening was I ended up on that night on 4th of July, I was just with some friends. We were just hanging out, and I was attempting to go into the middle of the street. It was in broad daylight, go in the middle of the street and light a firework. And there was people everywhere. It was almost like a block party, but it wasn't blocked off.
Yeah.
Traffic was still going. So what ended up happening was I went to the middle of the street and I was going to light a firework, and there was a group of kids maybe about 30 feet away from me doing the same thing. And all of a sudden I felt something. I felt something at the corner of my eye. A lady turned the corner and she was speeding down the street 40 miles an hour in a residential area.
During 4th of July?
Yeah. I don't know.
While there's people in the street?
Yes. I don't know what was going on.
Yeah.
I just know I felt something at the corner of my eye, turned the street corner. So I thought to myself, okay, I'll light it and I'll be off the street by then. Lit the firework. Obviously, by the time I lifted my head up and looked at what was coming at me, she was already there. So at that point, she was already right in front of me. So I see her. So I freaked out. I turned to cut and get out of the street. And then she hit me. I got hit by the car. Wow. And my head bounced off the windshield. My body was on the hood of her car. And then I remember toppling over. I remember little things here and there because I was kind of slipping out because my head hit her windshield. I felt it. I heard a strong hit on my head. Yeah. And then I fell and I felt something weird on my leg. And
were you had friends there and family?
Oh, no, it was just friends.
Okay.
It was just friends. And then so when I got hit, I was lying down on the pavement, and then I had a lady run down to me, and she says, "Stay put, stay put, stay put." It was just a neighbor or something like that. She was like, "Stay put, don't move." And I was just slipping out, I had a head injury, and then I looked down and I see my leg, and my leg is split in two. Oh. So it was a compound fracture. So the bone split in half, and it pierced right through my skin, tearing through all ligaments, muscle tissue, nerves. To this very day, I still have that nerve damage right there on my leg. Yeah. But basically it was just two pieces of my bone, my tib and my fibula fractured, and it was just sticking out of my leg.
Did she stop?
She stopped. When she hit me, she stopped, and then she looked back and she attempted to flee the scene. No. And then a mob of neighbors and a mob of neighborhood people just stopped her. They stood in front of her car telling her to stop. So yeah. She did stop, but then she attempted to flee the scene. Wow. Yeah, and it was crazy. So they ended up telling her to get out of the car and so like that. At least that's the story I got after I was in the hospital when I was conscious. But during that time, yeah, the first thing I could think in my head was what just happened? And then afterwards, I just then I remember getting taken away in a stretcher. Obviously, they took me over to the hospital. I had to get rushed into emergency surgery. I had to contact my parents, things like that. Just everything was the first thing I thought to myself was, and I was even talking to the EMT. I was like, oh no, am I going to wrestle again? Am I going to wrestle again? That I kept telling him, am I going to wrestle again? I just felt like my entire world just collapsed in front of me. Yeah. So after that happening to me, I was really, really bummed out. I was out for a whole year. So I had to end up going into emergency surgery. I had a titanium rod inserted from the top of my quad muscle all the way down to my ankle bone. So I have a nail there to hold it in place, nail in my knee. And so that rod's still there, actually. It's still there. I didn't get it taken out. So it's still there. And the recovery process was probably one of the hardest things I had to go through.
Where was your mind when you realized after surgery and you realized, crap, my wrestling career is is at a halt?
Yeah.
Where's your mind at, and what are you going through? What's going through your mind at that moment?
I just thought it's over. I just thought it was over. Just because, number one, I was already an older student. Like when I returned to college, I didn't go out of high school. I took time off, and then I went to college. So I was already, and there's not many colleges that would take an older student, which is why I was so grateful that they wanted me. You know what I mean? I was really happy just because I was already I was almost like 28. I was like 28 years old, 29 years old. Yeah. Wow. So yeah. I was like the oldest guy in the room, but at the same time, my level at that time, I felt it was at its peak because I was training with champions. I was training with really high level guys every single day. Like my brother was really good. He was ranked #1. My former teammate, Jimmy Martinez, he was state champion, national champion, and that was my drilling partner. So I knew that I was at that level. I knew I could hang with these guys. Like if I can take a beating from these guys, and then I go out in weekend tournaments and start smashing people, then I knew that for a fact that like I can beat those guys. And sure enough, but for me, it was one of those things where just my mind was just, all that work is gone. All that work is gone. So I was really bummed. I was, and also too, I think at the time, I thought to myself, how am I going to work? How am I going to be able to do what I have to, do my daily routines? How am I this is going to affect my life. And so I was sitting there, and it was just the recovery process. They told me was, you're going to heal in about a year to a year and a half, but I healed in 6 months. I healed in 6 months because I was so determined to get back and train and just get my mobility back, my range of motion back. And that was really hard because there was a lot of nerve damage. There was a lot of nerve damage in that lower calf muscle, the side of my calf muscle. Yeah. It was one of those things where, and I still feel it to this very day. So it was one of those things where if I were to kick somebody or hit it against something, I probably won't feel much. They'll feel it because it's a titanium. But if you were to hit a certain part on the side of my leg, then it'll just send an electrical pulse just throughout the whole, from the knee all the way down to my ankle. So yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm just gonna have to live with for the rest of my life. And then that's when I found jiu-jitsu. I actually found jiu-jitsu towards the end of that semester when I was ready to transfer out, because at that point Colombia was out of the question. I spoke with the coach at the time, and unfortunately the scholarship wasn't going to be available anymore. Or my grades,
you're 28 years old.
I'm 28 years old, yeah. And also too, my grades at the time, they were great, but to go to, at most they could have offered me a partial scholarship, which is it's not enough. Columbia is just almost $100,000+. Yeah. Yeah. So at that point, I just said to myself, well, I did have a backup plan. I think it's because my professors always taught me to, hey, look, have your first choice of schools and then have at least 1 or 2 backups. So my backup was Cal State Fullerton because I had a kinesiology program and that was my major. I wanted to go to become a PE teacher. But it turns out that Cal State Fullerton had a better kinesiology program where Columbia didn't have a kinesiology program at all. It just had a teaching program. But I was more going because the fact that the school had so much prestige. It was an Ivy League school. And to be honest with you, I was a horrible student in high school. I was horrible. I didn't become a better student until I got into, until I got sent out of college, where they taught me how to study, taught me how to become a better student, and just good study habits, things like that. Because when I went to sent out of college, I scored lowest on every single placement test, English, math, everything, because I was returning back to college at age 25, 26. So during that whole time of that little period after high school, I was just messing around. I was just doing stupid things.
Well, that's what I want to talk to you about, because I want to understand fully this tragedy that happened to you. I want to truly understand just what you lost. You lost the scholarship, which is a huge thing. That's a huge deal. Mm-hmm. But help me understand, because you were 28 years old. Mm-hmm. So there's this period between high school and being 26 or whatever when you went back to junior college. That tells me that, man, there was something going on there, and that's something you overcame to get yourself to that point, and then just to have it all taken from you.
Yeah.
Tell me, what was going on after high school, and how did you get to this period in your life where you were just like killing it on the mats as a wrestler and making these improvements? It sounds like you were making improvements in your life.
Yeah.
What was going on in that period that led you up to that point to help me understand just how tragic this whole car accident was for you?
I'm glad you asked it. That's a good question. If anything, no one's really asked me to dive deep into that. So I'm actually happy that you did, because hopefully maybe this will shed some light, not only to the struggles that people are going through out there or maybe are encountering, but hopefully this will help somebody maybe get through what they're going through. So thank you for asking me that. So what happened after high school was, first off, I barely graduated high school. And I did have aspirations to go to college, but truthfully speaking, I was just mixed up in the wrong crowd. Like, once you got out of school and you're cutting weight, doing a lot of stuff for a long time, you just want to just go out and just do your own thing and be your own man. And for me, that's what I wanted to do. I just want to go out there and just kind of like just explore the world. And what I was doing is but most of the time I was just hanging around a lot of very bad people, and I shouldn't say they're bad people, because they're not, because these are former friends of mine, you know what I mean? But unfortunately I just can't really be associated with them anymore, just because of the fact that it's true what they say, like, you are who your company is. Like, I like those guys. Those guys are forever going to be an important part of my life, because I felt like they're a building block of who I am. So I'll take that back. They're not bad people. They're really, really good people. It's just we just made bad decisions. We're young, you know what I mean? So for me, it was more just after high school, I just hung around with these individuals, and all we did was just party, get drunk, smoke, and just a lot of people didn't know that I used to have a drug problem. I used to like just escape my problems, because I was going through a lot of stuff, in my personal life, family life, things like that. So you, like anything, as a young man, you don't want to deal with your problems. You cover it up you mask it with addictions. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. I masked it with addictions, and I would go and I would just, hang out with my friends and things like that. And we just go and just get into all kinds of trouble. Like, I remember getting into a lot of fights. I remember just sometimes getting in fights with just like random people, but and of course I was under the influence, you know what I mean? And I just remember I was just completely destroying myself, just trying to escape what was really hurting inside,
Are you able to share with us what kind of troubles you were having that you were trying to mask, or if you want,
Oh yeah, sure. No, I don't mind. I can look back at it now and say that, it's, it helped a lot, because it made me who I am. But I would say more along the lines, I was just lost. I was more like, I didn't know what to do with my life. So I was freaked out. I thought I had to have life figured out at the age of 18. I thought that, hey, look, if most of my friends, some of my friends that I know actually ended up going to college straight out of high school. So I already felt like a loser. Like, all right, well, like I wasn't good in high school, so I don't think I'll hack it in college. And of course it was just more like I was going through some issues, like I didn't come from like the best home life. My parents did the best they could, but they're great people. They're wonderful people. I have a lot of love for them, and like anything else, when you grow up as a kid like that, you're very lost and just, misguided. But I know for me, it was one of those things where, I would say it was a lot of it was just stemming from the people you hang out with. It was the people that I hung out with. I would say that was more like that. When you go through things in life and stuff like that, and you start to look for an outlet, some people look to sports for an outlet. Some people look to a hobby as an outlet. For us, mine was alcohol, drugs, and just aggression, anger. And that was a lot of the stuff I was going through. And for me, back in the day, like I said, we didn't have social media back then. So back then, if you opened up your mouth, you probably got smacked upside the head. So that's how it was back then. It's like, if you opened up your mouth, or like I was very confrontational. So yeah, and that's how it was back then. It was just really, really just in your face. So
it's hard to believe, because you seem so calm and controlled.
Thank you for saying that. But I grew up in that area. It was a pretty tough area.
This is Santa Ana? Or?
No, well, I used to live in Santa Ana when I was a kid. Then we moved to Fullerton. You know, so I pretty much lived like in the area like near, I want to say like almost like Harbor and Euclid.
That's by the college, right?
I'm sorry, Orangethorpe and Euclid.
Not too far from the Fullerton JC school.
Yeah,
right?
not too far. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we grew up in a pretty tough area. So
It is actually.
Yeah. So it's changed a lot. So
I remember real short, and I went to the junior college there, and I was walking down the street to the McDonald's, and the cops stopped me because I guess I looked a little thuggish. I was about 17 or something, and they said, "Do you know where you are?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm in Fullerton." Yeah, this is a real dangerous neighborhood, and you're dressed like that, you can get yourself hurt, man. You should get out of here. I just remember being left with the impression that I was in the wrong place.
Well, Fullerton PD, I mean, I shouldn't say that about Fullerton PD, but I did have my run-ins with Fullerton PD when I was a kid, you know, things like that. It was pretty rough growing up there, but at the same time, it was also very rewarding because I also went to school there. I was able to go to college there. I was able to just accomplish a lot there. I felt like that city played a huge role in helping me become who I am, and I met a lot of good friends there and people that I still stay in contact with this very day, and things like that. But I would say during that whole period of time was like I know that place like through and through, like where to go, everything like that. So that was where I did most of my most destructive things, I think, to myself, was in that area.
And a lot of this was due to alcohol. So tell me, you're masking yourself with alcohol, and I could definitely relate to that. What kind of trouble was it getting you into? And did you end up, like, how much trouble? How bad was it?
Oh, it was bad. Like, I was getting into fights. I was, just like anything else, you isolate yourself. Like, you isolate yourself a lot from your family, things like that. You know, like, obviously when you have a problem, you know, you don't want, and this is the one thing I know about alcoholism is that, you know what, if a person really wants to get help, they're going to get help. If they don't want help, then it's going to be very difficult. They have to hit rock bottom before it gets serious, or something bad has to happen. And at that point, there was a lot of bad things happening, like, to a lot of my friends. Like, I was seeing like the consequences of their actions, and then I was seeing those consequences in my life. You know, I have friends that, you know, they look happy when you talk to them, but then when you hang out with them, they're drinking, and all of a sudden this anger, this rage comes out, and you're wondering, like, what's going on here? Like, well, how did it go from 0 to 100? Like, how did it get that serious?
Yeah, you don't realize sometimes how people can seem like they're okay on the surface. Mm-hmm. I've been thinking about this a lot. Mm-hmm. People are really good at masking what they're going through. I noticed it's alcoholism or even drug use is, you know, you brought up isolating yourself, especially like alienating yourself from family. That's definitely a good indicator. If you have kids and you see your teenage child and they're alienating themselves, that's a good indication that they're on drugs or alcohol.
Yeah, or even mental health, you know what I mean? Like, mental health, like, even if it's isolation, you know, mental health now more than ever is just one of those things where you're starting to see the warning signs now. I mean, the warning signs were always there back then when we were growing up, but obviously the stigma was different from us.
Very.
You know, for us, it was one of those things where, like, you don't go talk to people. Like, if you're hurting inside, you don't need to see a counselor. You know, you're brought up in that culture that it's like, you know, you're very macho. You have to be tough. You have to hold it.
Men don't talk about their problems.
Exactly. So what do? We drink, we do drugs, we mask the pain. You know, that's the era we grew up in. So nowadays, I'm very happy to see the shift now where people are starting to talk about mental health, talk things out. You know, do I always recommend that you see a professional? Absolutely, see a professional. Like, for me, like, I didn't see one until like later on in life. You know, and it made a huge difference for me
to have someone to talk to.
Absolutely, yes, have someone to talk to, a professional, someone you trust, a mentor. But for me, you know, I think it's important to see a professional, and I think so. That way, you have somebody that can guide you through this. But that was the case, so. But back then, you couldn't do that, and if you did that, then you couldn't tell nobody. You know,
right?
The guys would think you're like, you know, something's wrong. You know. But it was, so for me, it was one of those things where, and I did this, and I don't think, if anyone has the strength to do this, be my guest, but it was very, very difficult for me. You know, there are 12-step programs for a reason. But for me, I quit cold turkey.
Did you?
That was hard, yeah. I quit cold turkey. Like, I just stopped everything. And a lot of it, and it wasn't because, like, it wasn't because I wanted to. It was because, you know, I got a job. I had a new job, you know, and it was one of those things where, so quick story. The reason why I quit cold turkey was because my younger brother at the time was wrestling for Orange High School.
Okay.
And then he mentioned to me that that there was that one of their coaches left, one of their head coaches left, so the assistant's taking over, and they need an additional coach. So
okay. Can't have a drunk wrestling coach.
Exactly. No, you can't. So why do you say that? So anyways,
I mean, that'd be quite a sight. All right, guys. Let me see.
Well, I'm sure you see that a lot in T-ball back then.
Hell yeah, exactly.
But what ended up happening was my brother said, "Hey, look, we have an opening for a coaching position. Like, you should think about taking it." And I know my brother really wanted me to take the job, and I wanted to be closer to him. You know what I mean? Just to be there with him, because he was wrestling, and I was so happy for him. But at the same time, I was too busy doing my own thing. I didn't want to be around that stuff. Were
you in shape?
Huh?
Were you in shape?
Absolutely not. I was in complete the opposite shape. I was in horrible shape. I was probably I'm 150 pounds now, like in fight shape. But back then I was probably like a good 190, almost 200.
Wow.
It was all fat. It was just you can see it on my skin. You can see it on my face.
So basically like this.
Yes, pretty much, yes. I like a meatball. Yeah, and I'm not very tall. So, right. But what ended up happening was he said, "Hey, look, we have a job opening. Maybe you should think about coming aboard." I'm like, I'll kind of shrug him off. And then finally, I don't know, I had nothing else to do. I think at the time, I was working for another job, but it just wasn't doing it for me. So I asked my brother, "Hey, how much does the job pay?" And then talked to the coach. The coach told him how much the job pays, and it was I think $2,000. I thought wow, that's a lot of money I can party with. So that's what I thought. Yeah. So I just, for being honest, so I just, so I said, okay, well, let me go ahead and I'll take the job. And then so I took the job. I have no coaching experience at all, So when I took that job, I came on board, and I spent a good amount of time yelling. I spent a lot of time yelling more than actual coaching. I was always angry all the time. Well, obviously, because I quit cold turkey, because I know one of the policies when you work for the district, obviously you can't be under the influence, because they do a background check, things like that. So everything was all good, but nobody knew I had a problem, right. Except maybe my brother. So
you were able to quit cold turkey before you took the job?
I'm sorry?
You were able to cut cold turkey before you actually took the job?
Yeah. So okay. I think I literally quit. I think I quit about 3 days before I took the job, because they gave me my start date. Yeah. So I was trying to give myself a little time to kind of get used to it. Yeah.
One last drink.
My last drink or whatever.
Yeah.
So so I ended up going and taking the job, and it was difficult. I'm not gonna lie. The first couple of months were very difficult.
What kind of challenges were you having?
I was sweating a lot. I was angry. I was just moody. It was more just it was one of those things where it's one thing when you're doing something for yourself, but now you're doing something for others. Now you have kids watching you. And then for me, what I always took from the lessons of wrestling is that, hey, look, people look up to you. So lead by example. So I kind of had to kick it into wrestling mode, and I had to just be the best version of myself, even though I was really hurting.
Did anybody have to pull you aside and say, "Hey, man, there's a lot of yelling going on"?
Yo, absolutely, yes. I'll see. Let me get into that. Thank you for saying that. But I had two great men in my life that got me through this process. One of them is Justin Young, who was the coach. He was the head coach, and so I was his assistant. And then later, Tim Byers, one of my mentors, he came aboard, and the next year, and that man really molded me to I feel like who I am. But Justin was really patient with me. He knew that I wasn't in the best, my mind wasn't in the best in the best. So he was there, and he was patient with me. I never met a man so patient in my life. He knew I was yelling, so he was kind of like I was hot and he was cold. So he did a really good job of just kind of calming me down and pulling me to the side. But it was Tim Byers that really took me aside and said, "Hey, look, you know what? We're kind of flying off the handlebars here. Let's remember why we're doing this. This is how you do it." So she would show me how to do it, because Tim Byers was a very well accomplished coach. He joined our staff in the year after, and our team wasn't the best. We were probably last every year. And but when Tim Byers came, that's when I felt like things shifted. Because
did you right away accept and embrace his corrections?
Absolutely, yes. The reason why I did is because, first off, the man has 10 championship rings. He's won 10 CIF titles. He came from a powerhouse program called Yucca Valley. So he's coached a lot of kids at the highest level. He's coached a state champion before. He's still coaching to this very day. He's in his 60s, and he's coaching multiple female state champions, and in college, and now girls that got onto college. He's coached a lot of young men that gone on to college to reach the highest levels of wrestling. And so he's a very well respected man in the wrestling community. And I was very, very fortunate to have coached alongside him more than one occasion. So when he would pull me aside and he took me under his wing and he would really work with me and coach me. He took me to coaching clinics. I never knew coaching clinics existed. So he took me to coaching clinics and things like that. And he really, really invested a lot of time in me and my brother. And I really appreciate that. That right there forever will be something that, like, I mean, I can never, pay back, because he really helped me out. And he always taught me, hey, look, he would say, Richard, I can tell you have a lot of passion. Let's just use it in the right direction. It's pointed in the right direction. Let's, instead of getting upset, pinpoint the problem and let's come up with a solution. How about that? And so he always had a way of keeping things very simple, explaining things in a very simplistic way. And at the same time, he also got right to the point. He's he's from Ohio, so he has that Midwest mentality. So I was very fortunate to have this man in my life. And I coached with him at Orange, and then I coached with him at Santa Ana High School, and we saw a lot of great things happen, because of this period of time. But I would say during that time when I was at Orange, he really helped me out, him and Justin, and I felt like I was able to reach new heights with my coaching. So when they did depart and end up taking up all other teaching jobs, then when I took the helm, then I felt comfortable, like, hey, look, I can do this. I can do my best to be the best example I can for the kids. At this point, it was more like, okay, I already knew, like, we're a struggling program. So let's try and make wrestling fun. Let's try and do great things by just enjoying wrestling, learning wrestling, and love coming to practice. But when we had that staff there with Tim Byers and Justin Young, we ended up taking Orange to the most successful season it ever had. We ended up getting second place in the league. We almost dethroned Santa Ana, which is a powerhouse. And then we ended up going all the way to CIF duels and taking guys all the way to CIF CIF. And then we almost had a student almost place in a master's to go to state. And of course, we took our first ever girls champion all the way to CIF. And then later on, that just led to a catalyst. Me and my brother just took over the program, and then we just ended up producing guys and girls that would go on to like CIF and masters and things like that. So I was really, really cool.
How old were you at this time?
Oh, I was probably like 20. I want to say like 23.
So by embracing the philosophy of just having some fun and making it fun, you were able to, that like opened the doors for you guys to actually make positive or improvements on this team that was struggling. What is it about having the philosophy of just having fun in that particular situation of a struggling team that you think opened the doors and how you guys had so much success?
I feel it was a man by the name of Scott Glab. Glab, I hope you're listening. If so, then I just want to say hi.
He's over here, right here in this camera.
Oh, hey, sorry. Hey, Coach Glab, how are you? Yeah. But I always try to say to myself, because I would see a lot of like successful coaches in wrestling, and I would just always try to find out, okay, what are they doing? Like, what are they doing? It's one thing that Byers taught me: be a student of the game. So I would, at the time, Santa Ana has always been one of the top wrestling programs in Orange County. And a lot of it was due to the success of their coach, Scott Glab, who has a real heart for kids, a man of faith, someone that I also look up to. So what ended up happening was Orange High School and Santa Ana were in the same league at the time. So we'd see them every year. So I had approached Coach Glab, and I just asked him, "Hey, Coach, like, what's your secret? Like, what's your secret to success? I mean, I'm sure you just saw this random kid come up to him and say, hey, like, how are you guys doing this? And then why do you guys win so much?" And then Glab told me something that I'll never forget. He said, "Don't focus on winning. Focus on trying to get involved in their lives and make them the best human beings you possibly can. Focus on making wrestling fun." And those are words that still stick with me to this very day. And they're still on replay whenever I always think about, like, I lead astray.
I think that's great advice. And I think it's great advice even that I will take to heart myself with this podcast, for example. It's called the Dre B. Rambo Show, but it's not about me. It's about the person in front of me and their story, and I try to remember that as I'm, on this podcast, and make sure it's not just me talking the whole time, like the stories that I'm going to get from here. And I love that philosophy. You brought something up about mentorship, Tim Byer. What is it about mentorship that you think people don't understand, or maybe that, what's the value of having a mentor?
A guide. I want a person with a lot of experience that has been there, that has experienced both the hardship and the success of the field that you're trying to study in or work in or master. And I think it's important to have a mentor. That way you have someone that can either give you some advice, how to handle situations, a guide. I mean, you can choose to listen or not listen, or you can really take their information at face value. And I feel like right now more than ever, especially where I'm training at right now at AOJ, you see a lot of mentorship. But for me, I was already exposed to that at an early stage in wrestling, because a lot of the men in wrestling have made huge impacts in my life. And to tell you the truth, wrestling doesn't pay much money. Matter of fact, it doesn't pay anything, very little. I mean, unless you make it to the college ranks, or if you're a high school, then you're a teacher. But we're used to being mentors and doing this for free. We're used to getting involved in people's lives because we want the sport to help you become a good human being. The championships, the medals, the grind, that's part of the journey. That's like a reward, but in the end, like, the overall goal is we want to see you become a good human being. And that's what I like. That's what I love to see, because I feel like I'm seeing it all over again when I go to AOJ. Like, you see all the black belts, you see all the Professor Gee, Professor Tynan, you see, Professor Pablo, you see everybody, all the teachers there. They really, really like mentor to these young kids and these adults. And then these young kids now, they're mentoring to even the smaller kids, like the pre-Ks and the 3 to 5 year olds, 6 year olds. So you see, it's just like a pillar of just mentorship. It's awesome, and it's really cool to see, because it's something that inspires me, and it's something that I want to continue to implement in my program. So I think it's awesome. So I feel like it's important to have a mentor. And believe me, I've mentored a lot of people before, and some have been great and some haven't been so great, because like I said, in the end, you can't make somebody, you can't force someone to listen. It's at that point, all you can do is provide information, feedback, and hope they either make the necessary changes to accomplish the mission, or they won't, or they'll get offended and things like that. It's like, it's something that we as coaches deal with a lot. I've dealt with it a lot in wrestling. When I was, you see a kid that has great talent, and you see a kid that's maybe doesn't have great talent, but is a great listener and shows up to practice every day. He's probably not the best, but he shows up to practice every day. And if you give him feedback and you help him out, he does great. He'll one day rise to the crop of the group. And then of course you'll have this other student that has all the talent in the world. You'll give him advice, you'll help him out, but he'll just get stuck in his own way. His decisions won't match his lifestyle. His decisions won't match his sport. And that's the thing, like, your decisions have to match your lifestyle, or at least your goal. In other words, if you want to be a champion, you have to, your every decision you make is pivotal. Every decision you make is gonna be like a compound of interest that leads to that overall goal. And if you're not making those decisions that match your goal, then you're not going to see the results you want. If anything, you're going to see the opposite, or you're going to be stuck in that rut where you're like, why am I not making changes? Oh, I know why. My coach told me this is what I need to do. I need to make these changes. Now I have to make that personal decision. I have to stay disciplined, and it's very hard for some people to do, or it's very hard when someone holds you accountable. I think it's great that someone holds you accountable, which is what I think is good for mentorship. Someone holds you accountable. Like, I'm very fortunate that I had these coaches and these mentors in my life to hold me accountable. Like, for me, if I'm doing something wrong, I would like somebody to tell me. I would like someone to tell me, because that way I won't do it again, and I'll make better decisions, because that's what life is. Like, you're always making decisions. You make mistakes, but at the same time, where the growth process happens is when somebody holds you accountable, and then you make those adjustments.
Kind of like the decision you made when you decided to stop drinking alcohol to get that job.
Yeah.
The wrestling. Yeah,
absolutely. For me, it was more like, I didn't think I was going to fall in love with coaching. I thought I was just going to go and get paid and then let's have a good time. But that didn't happen. At that point, I wasn't even focusing on the money when I was halfway through the season, because my body already all that stuff just got out of my system. And not only that, but like I got so involved with just trying to help the kids and trying to just become a better coach. And I said to myself, okay, if I'm going to be here, then I want to make an impact with these kids. And I got to lead by example. And I can't be an example if I'm yelling and screaming and just, cursing and saying dumb stuff. I gotta help them get better. And even if we're like the worst team in the league, at least I want them to have fun. At least I want them to remember, hey, Coach Rick is here for me. Coach Rick is here for me. And no matter what, he'll always be here for me. And that's really the message that I wanted to say to these kids. Yeah. And so that's what we were doing in the practice room. And then that just led on to other things. And
so you had made some life changes. You got off the sauce. Mm-hmm. You started coaching these kids. You're having fun. You got great guys like Scott Glab and Tim Byer, mm-hmm. Mentoring you. Mm-hmm. What leads you? What leads you to jiu-jitsu? Where does that come in?
Well, I started doing jiu-jitsu in 2000.
Is this before your accident?
No, it's after my accident.
Oh, so tell me, finish telling me what's going on until what changes, positive changes, because obviously they were positive. You're about to go mm-hmm. to a 4-year college. You decided to go to junior college, apparently.
Yeah.
You start having success in wrestling. What happens?
Well, after when I was in Santa Ana College, I was already on my last year, about to graduate. So at that point, I had to make a decision where I'm going now since this injury happened. Obviously, my range of motion wasn't there. My mobility wasn't there. I mean, I was walking around campus like in crutches in a wheelchair for a good amount of time. So, and plus intense rehab. So for me, when I was finally able to get back on the mat, I mean, the movement wasn't there. My body it just wasn't there. And I don't know if that had to do with age or whatnot, but it was just very difficult.
Did you know what jiu-jitsu was at this time?
Well, I did know what jiu-jitsu was because I was a huge UFC fan. Like I watched the very first UFC. That's how long I've been a fan. Like I think it started in the 90s. Yeah. So when it started in the 90s, I was already in high school and we got exposed to like those VHS tapes of UFC, like in the videotape stores, which video stores don't, for the listeners, there were once stores that had videotapes.
Big boxes with film in it.
Exactly, yes. And you'd rent videos every Saturday. And
right.
Yes, DVDs. Yeah. But yeah, that's where I would get my, that's where I found out about the UFC, Ultimate Fighting Championship. So I would see this little guy. We all know Hoist Gracie. Yeah. He was just destroying these big guys.
Number UFC 5, Dan Severn, one of my favorites. What convinced me jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Was that the one?
That was the one for me.
Oh my goodness. For me, it was when he, I believe won, I want to say he won UFC. He beat Shamrock. When he beat Shamrock. Yeah. When he beat Shamrock, I was like, holy cow, this little guy's beating up this muscle-bound professional wrestler. Right. This is cool. This is awesome. Like, does this work? And I'm like, this really works. So how I got into jiu-jitsu was, I was on my final year. I believe it was my last 2 semesters at Santa Ana College. I was in I want to say it was a bio class. It was in a bio class. I met a man by the name of John Carr, who's still to this very day one of my dearest friends. He's the one that got me into jiu-jitsu. So it's John Carr. He's a super athletic guy, and we would see each other like every like Tuesday, Thursday in class. And then I always confided in him. He was a really cool guy. He always listened to me, and he actually helped me out through a lot of hard times. And
this is towards the end of your recovery?
This was towards the end of when I was about to transfer out of Santa Ana College.
But you had already been injured?
Yeah, I was already injured.
You already recovered?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was already recovered, full recovery now. So he knew I was down. He sensed I was down, and he's seen me like, wow, like your leg and things like that. So he's seen me like what I went through in terms of just like going to class in crutches to walking now to like now running. So like he knew what I was going through, and he kept like, he saw me and said, you know what, man, I know you're a wrestler, but you'd be really good at jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, nah, I want to wrestle. So, but he was very persistent. So that's one thing I admire about John. He was very, very persistent. He just kept, every time he saw me, you should try jiu-jitsu. I know a gym.
Did he put you in the middle of the room and say, nah, jiu-jitsu guy?
Not at all. If anything, he led me to a very good place. He led me to a very good place where nobody jumped me, at least until after I signed up the membership.
Right. Yeah. Where did he lead you?
He led me to Team Oyama. He led me to Team Oyama in Irvine, and I was able to train under Jiva Santana and Professor Mokayet, which they're now One Jiu-Jitsu now. And so that was my first team, and that was my first set of professors. Great men. I really, really enjoyed training there. I felt like I was able to learn a lot and improve and get my basics down and learned a lot of my fundamental principles and just build those skills from top to bottom. But yeah, that's where I started doing jiu-jitsu. And I had a great time, and I'm not gonna lie. During that time, I was still going through a rough period. In terms of like, okay, I can't wrestle the same anymore. The scholarship's gone, so now I'm gonna go to a second choice college. Now that I look back at it now, I actually love Cal State Fullerton. I love that school. Yeah. But
I'm curious to know, after your accident, before you start jiu-jitsu, did you relapse on alcohol?
No, not at all.
Oh, good.
No, absolutely no. Okay. So what ended up happening was once I quit, I haven't touched a drop since.
Excellent.
I haven't touched a drop. So I'm proud to say that I haven't touched a drop since. I stayed clean. Now, I mean, that thought doesn't even come to mind. If anything, it's just, I felt that once I got something into my life, that was my passion, you weren't going to stop me. That's the way I always was. Just because I already had wrestling in my life already. And even when I was still in high school, when people would still go to parties and do all this stuff, I was training. So I already knew how to be disciplined already from the beginning. So I didn't become much of that kind of person until after high school, probably because I didn't get to experience it too much in high school, not that much. So when I start to kind of go a little wild, after high school, then that's when I felt like, okay, you know what, I'm done. Like I'm done. I'm done. I'm just gonna. So if I quit, then I'm not going back. And at that point, I was pretty adamant and serious about going, because when I was coaching high school wrestling, then that's when I made the decision to go back to school. So when I made that decision, that was probably like around age like 25, I think, 25. So that's when I made that decision. Okay, I'm ready to go back to school. I'm ready to go back to school, and I'm ready to just get a degree. And that's when I knew, okay, yeah, if I'm gonna go, I'm gonna wrestle too. And if I go and I wrestle, then obviously I'm not gonna do that stuff. So I was very well disciplined. So after that, I didn't touch or drop, and I didn't do anything. I just stayed focused on just competing, training, wrestling, and just trying to better myself in every way. But to go back to what you were saying, John led me to Team Oyama. I started training there, and at that time, I was still going through a bit of a rough transition, just coming with the realization that I'm probably not going to wrestle at that level that I wanted to anymore. At the time, I was in a very long relationship, and it ended. So the plans that I once had of being with this person, and then the plans that I had to go into this college, my leg, it was all just like a triple threat. It just like hit me all at once. So it was more just like, well, I'm in a rough spot now. So, what do I got to lose? So I tried jiu-jitsu, and the first day, I fell in love with it. And that was when I just came off the breakup. So I was already in a bad spot. So when I got on the mat, wow, it felt so good to move like that. It's like, wow, this is great. I can hold somebody down. I can take them down. I can get on top of them. I can hold them. I can do other things, and it just grew from there, the love for jiu-jitsu. And I didn't want to get off the mats. Like the moment I got there, I was hooked. I just kept coming every day. I'd go do gi. No, I'm sorry. I want to be truthful here. It was a Nogi class.
Yeah.
So it was a Nogi class. So my first love was Nogi. So I started doing Nogi, and I just kept doing Nogi. And then finally, that's when I met Professor Jiva. And that's when we started doing gi. They started encouraging, you should do the gi more. And I didn't like the gi, to be honest, when I first started putting the gi on, just because I didn't like the grips.
Probably a good thing you started off with no gi, because you probably felt like it was more like wrestling.
Yes, that's exactly why. Yes. So I encourage wrestlers, like when you first start doing jiu-jitsu, try no gi. That way it gets you familiar with it. And then if you decide to do gi the first time, I commend you, because it's tough. But
that was my wife, because she started off no gi, and she was like, I'm never gonna put on those pajamas. I don't like gi. That's ridiculous. Now she doesn't. She don't do no gi no more. She just loves gi.
That's how it turned out for me at the end. Yeah. That's great. Jiu-jitsu. But that's when I started doing jiu-jitsu. And then I didn't know there were competitions. So I was more just training jiu-jitsu for my mental health. I didn't know there were competitions and things like that. I wasn't trying to be a world champion. I was just doing it to beat my depression. The fact that hey, I lost pretty much everything I worked for. And so now I'm about to graduate, and I'm about to go into this unknown of what's going to happen to me now. What's going to happen academically to me? What's going to happen to me in my personal life now? But all I know is that there's something right now that's gravitating me towards that, and that's jiu-jitsu. So I just kept training every day until it took that pain away. And then later on, I started competing. And then when I started competing, then I got the taste for gold. And that's when professor was saying, hey, you should try and do nationals. And I'm like, what? Like nationals? Like that seems pretty serious. And my first tournament, not my first tournament, but my third tournament, it was the American Nationals and at white belt. And I won the tournament, and I became national champion. So I was like, wow, this is great. I can really do this. Then he encouraged me to do pans. And I was like, you serious? pans? And I'm like, yeah. And then I didn't quite know what I was walking into when I did pans. Like I thought like, okay, it's like at a high school gym. No, I walked right into the Brand Event Center, cameras everywhere, flow everywhere, just people just shouting in Portuguese. I didn't know what was going on. I was like, what did I get myself into? And it was just a huge event. It was really cool. That's when I knew like, wow, like I really like, I'm in the mix here. And then sure enough, I ended up winning pans and I got promoted to blue belt in under a year by my professor. And that was the coolest thing ever. For me, that's when I knew, okay, this is what I want to do. Just because through everything I was going through, everything that I went through, to lose everything, to not get the scholarship, to just have everything just fall apart in my life. And then to all of a sudden go and fight hard for like 4 matches. I think it was 3 or 4 matches, win that tournament. And then all of a sudden become a Pan American champion. Then all of a sudden just have my professor tie up a brand spanking new blue belt around me. I was like, this is the best thing in the world. It's the best feeling in the world. After that tournament was over, I was just like in the parking structure for a long time, just kind of just letting my emotions go, just because I was just, I lost it. Just because I worked so hard to get to this point. So when I finally got to this point, I just couldn't believe what I had to go through to get here, to show that, hey, look, I did it. I survived whatever was trying to break me. And that's what jiu-jitsu did for me. And after that, I just kept going. I didn't stop. I kept competing all the way until I had, as a brown belt, I had surgery. I had more surgeries. But then, like, after that, like, I just...
For your leg, or?
For what happened was when I was a brown belt, I'm still a brown belt, but what happened was back in, I want to say it was probably like a few years ago. First off, I've been... As a blue belt, I'm pretty sure I might have torn my right meniscus. And then I want to say 2000 before COVID, like 2019, 2018, I believe, I tore my left meniscus. So that really bad. That was a bucket handle tear. That was a really bad tear. And so pretty much for a decade, I was competing on bad knees. And at the time I was in college and I didn't have medical insurance. So I was just toughing it out. I would go see my college professors. One of my college professors actually wrote a book on knee injuries. And we had a lot of very knowledgeable people like in athletic recovery and performance in the kinesiology department at Cal State Fullerton. So I would go see them because it's free to students. So I just walk down there and go see them, and I had access to them, and they would just tell me like, okay, this is what you do for rehab. This is what you do to get yourself for the next tournament, things like that. They would assess me. The athletic training staff did a good job with me, just keeping me like on the go. And then of course at the time I was seeing Kessler at OC Fight Docs. Shout out to Doc Kess. Thank you, Doc. So Kessler was always working on me and the rest of his staff, as well as the staff at Cal State Fullerton. So both my knees were just shot. So I had both knees that were just done, but my left one was really bad. So I had to have knee surgery. I had to have bilateral knee surgery, so double knee surgery. So that was in I want to say 2021 when I finally, I graduated from college, got a job, finally got the medical insurance. So now I can finally go and just get my knees worked on. So I finally got my knees worked on, and I had surgery. I had double knee surgery. And what ended up happening was when I had knee surgery, I recovered. I made a full recovery, but my right side, it was a failed repair. It was a failed repair. So when I tried to get back on the mat, it popped again. So, and it locked up pretty bad. So once I was able to get it unlocked, then I had to go back under the knife again. So I had 3 surgeries. So basically I was sidelined for 3 years. So when I made the shift over to AOJ was when I started to get back into fight shape. Because when I went into AOJ, I put on, like, during that whole recovery process, the doctor told me you need to take a year of recovery. So per knee. So for me, it was like, since I had both knees done at the same time, that was 1 year of recovery. Couldn't do nothing. I just lifted a lot. Like I put on like maybe 25 pounds of muscle. But at the same time, like, with my legs, all I can do is just rehab them and stay off the mat. But then when that right knee popped again, then I had to go back under. And the doctor told me it was like a little micro tear. So it looks like it was bound to happen. Like it was about to turn into a full tear. So luckily they didn't have to take anything out. They just repaired it. So it was just, they just like sutured it and it was good.
Yeah.
So I had to go through that 3-year recovery process. So to finally get back to where I wanted to. And then all of a sudden just like this happened. So 3 years now on the shelf just, and then at the time we were opening up Hybrid Academy. So we were just building the gym up, and then we transitioned to our new location when we were about a little under a year into our old location. And then we grew so fast that we ended up having to move we ended up moving to a new location, a bigger location. So basically I was like in crutches and like in a wheelchair. And
as you're starting Hybrid?
As we're starting the new location.
Oh, a new location.
Yeah.
Do you mind moving that?
Sure. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's good. I saw it on my camera. I was like, hey, couldn't even see the name of the company. Well, let me ask you. So where were you at the time that you were going to start? I mean, did you start Hybrid with some partners or? No,
I started so Hybrid with me is something that Hybrid's my gym.
Yeah.
Hybrid's my gym. So for me, Hybrid is something that it was a project that I went on my own. Mm-hmm. It was always something that I was very passionate about. Like I knew I wanted to gym.
Yeah.
By the time I was a blue belt, when I was already teaching Jiu Jitsu, that's when I started teaching Jiu Jitsu.
As a blue?
Yeah, I was teaching as a blue. I was teaching at a blue at Cal State Fullerton. So
you had a Jiu Jitsu program at Cal State Fullerton?
Yeah.
Is it still there?
No, I don't think so anymore. I think COVID kind of killed it. So what ended up happening was when I was at Cal State Fullerton as a blue belt, I was teaching in the rec center classes. When I started teaching at the rec center classes, we started off with 5 students, and then the program just expanded. We just got huge. We got big, like over 80 to 100 students. And I was teaching there for a good amount of time during my undergrad. So
as a student
and a teacher. And then when I finally graduated.
But I mean, you were a student at the school.
Yes.
But you were teaching.
And I was teaching on campus. Yeah. Working on campus. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Did they pay you?
Yeah, they paid me.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah. No, it was
why didn't you stay there?
Well, for me, I got promoted. So I did stay there, but I just got promoted. So what happened was I was teaching at that. We started the program in 2013. We started with 5 students. We started with just 2 classes a week, but we grew into our numbers just grew fast. We started teaching Nogi classes probably for like the first couple of years. Then we finally expanded to gi classes. So when we grew to like 30, 40 people, then they started giving me more classes. They started giving me like options to teach gi and no-gi, which I brought up the idea and they said, yeah, they like it. It's great. And it was the fastest growing program we had in that history at the rec center. But what happened was as we got towards, I want to say, sorry, it's been such a long time, but I want to say when we got into like around 2016, 2017 was when I graduated. So I graduated in 2016 from Cal State Fullerton. And then what happened was, but during that time, during my final year as an undergrad, I had a college professor who was teaching. She was about to retire, so she had like a teaching course, like an activity course. It was like a self-defense course. Anyway, she was about to retire, but she's still head of the department. So she told me, "Hey, look, you know what? I'm gonna depart from my teaching responsibilities. I want to know if you want the job. Do you want to come in and use this as an official class? So now you're going to be on the catalog. You'll be teaching jiu-jitsu classes and it'll be offered as a college course. Nice. So now you can get a 1-unit course to fulfill your activity requirement for all kinesiology students,
right?
Which was great. This was like a breakthrough for like jiu-jitsu in the college catalog for jiu-jitsu in our school.
Right.
So I thought, wow, to go from a rec center class where it's just for recreation purposes is now going to be offered as a class where you can get a unit and that'll go towards your degree. So for me, that was great. So I ended up taking the job. My assistant coach at the time, I had her take care of the rec center classes. She took over. She did a fantastic job. Her name's Heidi. Hi, Heidi. Hope you're doing well. And then after that, I ended up going to the kinesiology building. So now we were on the top floor, and then now we were running. It was called Kinesiology 150. And so now you can it was a jiu-jitsu class and a wrestling class. So it was a hybrid program. So I was teaching beginner wrestling, and then I was doing half the course wrestling, half the course jiu-jitsu. So it was a hybrid program. And so for me, that was the coolest thing because now all my students got exposed to wrestling basics, jiu-jitsu basics, and the students loved it. And I'm like anything else, you had to organize a curriculum. You had to organize a testing structure because we did have to test them. I did have to test them. So this was a new challenge for me. but I was very fortunate because I had a lot of really good professors there that I was still very close with, and they would always work with me and teach me and help me. So we ended up creating a really good class, a very popular class. And then of course COVID hit. And when COVID hit, then you couldn't do it. You couldn't do classes like that.
COVID also affected what you were doing with hybrid? Or
No. So what happened was once that ended with Cal State, because I mean, students weren't even going to campus. I mean, like they're all Zoom classes.
You're right.
And then at that point, you can't really do jiu-jitsu on Zoom. It's just, you can't. It's just so.
I saw people try.
Yeah. No, me and my brother tried. We tried to do wrestling classes, but it just wasn't in the cards. It's hard. So what ended up happening was I started hybrid in 2021. It was almost when COVID was about to, I mean, I don't know if it really ended, but like it was kind of at a point where it was a lot better, where they were lifting mandates, where they were allowing people now to kind of get back to things, sort of, but there were still some restrictions. So for me, I started hybrid in 2021. We started in a very small building, about 375 square feet. So it was an office building, probably no bigger than this right here. And then we just matted it up, and then we just started from there. And it was located out in Anaheim Hills, and it was very small, but it grew fast. And then from there, for me, when it started to grow, like when we were 6 months into it, I said, okay, yeah, we're too big. We need space. It's becoming a safety issue. So what I ended up doing was we ended up finding a place out in Orange, and it was a great location right off the freeway. No one had to battle like the 91, because that was the hard part, battling the 91.
Yeah.
So we ended up starting getting the new location set up, and then and during that time, that's when I was having like my knee surgeries, things like that. So, but we finally got the location. We got everything set, got the mats put up, and then everything was it just came to fruition.
You had like an investor, or you saved money?
No, it was me, all me.
You just saved money working and
saved money working. I just ate crackers for a long time, No, it's just, I mean, for me, I don't mind like suffering and saving and eating crackers to eat steak later. I have a lot of patience. I have a lot of patience with people, and I have a lot of patience with just when I want to go after something. Like, even though like for instance, when I was at Cal State Fullerton, we had 5 students for a long time. We had 5 students. Anyone else would have quit.
Yeah.
But I stayed, and sometimes we'd even have 1 student. But it didn't matter if it's 1 student or 5 students or 50 students. If it's that 1 student, I want to give them the best experience I possibly can. Because sooner or later, that 1 student is going to go and tell somebody. And then sure enough, it's just going to spread. And that's exactly what happened. So for me, it was one of those things where like, I knew this was, obviously when we started hybrid and it was in a very small building, I just saved. And luckily, like I said, for me, it was all just like volunteer work. Like I still haven't seen like a dime, because in the end, no matter what, it all goes back into the gym.
Right.
It all goes back into the gym, or it goes back into the staff. For me, I work a regular job. I have a regular job. So for me, it's like, when I work my regular job, like, like I said, hybrid, it was like a passion project for me. But even then, like, obviously for me, I would go and I would talk to other business people that were in the business, that were like, some were in the gym business, some were like in like business. And they would just tell me like, yeah, you know what? There was there was a long period of time where,
there was nothing.
And even when there was nothing, like I wouldn't pay myself. I would put it back into the business, because to me, it doesn't seem smart to just go and give yourself a huge salary. That's ridiculous. It's dumb, especially in California. Like, it's expensive to live here, so, and it doesn't seem smart. He's saying, so he would always tell me, so these particular individuals would just tell me like, hey, look, you know what? It's best to just reinvest it back into the gym, reinvest it back into the people, and reinvest it into just building up your facility, expenses, things like that. It's like, so you're going to be doing a lot of saving, and you got to be okay with eating crackers before you're eating steak. And I'm like, bro, I used to live in a gym. I'll eat crackers. I don't mind, because when I was in college, I lived in a gym. I lived in a gym for a long time. Like, a lot of people don't know that side of my life, that, when I decided to make the decision to go back to college, I was broke. I didn't have any money. I would work jobs, but all that went to like my food, gas, whatever. And I had to pay tuition. Like when I got to Cal State Fullerton, like I was homeless. A lot of people don't know that. Like, I lived in a gym. I had a friend of mine that like, he owned a strength facility. And, I met this guy by the grace of God. I met him. Love you, Josh, man. Hope you're doing well. Josh Godel. That guy's also been a very important part of my life. He was a strength coach, and You know, he was just like, hey, look, man, I heard about your situation, because I was teaching jiu-jitsu classes for him. And he would say, hey, look, I know about your situation. Just why don't you just, park it here. You can couch surf here if you want to. Just keep the place up and just, because he knew I was homeless, and I didn't have a place to go. So, at Cal State Fullerton, they had this new thing going on now where like, if you don't qualify for certain financial, for like financial aid, then you got to pay the rest of the tuition up front. Otherwise, all your classes get canceled.
Up front, huh?
Up front, yeah.
Wow.
So I had to pay a lot of it out of pocket, and it was very difficult. I was working 3 jobs. I was working for like Old Navy. I was working for like Skechers in a sketchy place. So yeah, no pun intended.
Did you end up getting your kinesiology degree?
I got it. Yeah, I finished school. Yeah, I finished school, and that's where I met my wife.
Oh,
yeah, and things like that. So it was one of those things where like, my wife seen me. She met me when I had nothing, absolutely nothing. She met me when I was living in the gym. So for me, to go and be part of that unfortunate population, because that's 100% real. Just so you know, for those that are like watching this, homelessness with the student population is real. There's a lot of students out there that are homeless, that don't have access to food, that don't have access to resources for whatever reason. Some of them maybe didn't get parental support. Some of them maybe didn't get financial support. So they're going to school, and I know this for a fact because there are times where I'd have to camp out in that structure and I would see other cars there, and those are other students.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I never thought about that.
Yeah. There's students out there that want to go to school, that want to get that degree, but unfortunately they don't have the means to do that. So they have to either work on campus. They got to like take advantage of the free resources. And then like, it wasn't until I graduated from college or my last year, my senior year, where I found out they had a student pantry. Like actually a friend of mine started that pantry. Because by the time because me and him were going to graduate together, and he would bring me cans of food, because he would always bring it up to the class, like, hey, everyone, just want to let you know I'm starting a pantry. If anyone wants some food, I'm going to leave a bag here and things like that. You can come see me, or I'll just leave it there with no discretion. We don't have to talk about it. You can just go and just pick it up.
This pantry services Cal State Fullerton?
All students now.
What's the name of the pantry?
Oh, it's just CSUF pantry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's just a pantry. Now the pantry now is like, oh my goodness, they have refrigerators now. They have like coolers. They have a produce section. They have like waters. They have so much now. And like back then, it all started with just a bag of food. My friend was one of the people that helped launch that idea. And he was basically like a mobile pantry, and he has such a big heart. So he would go and just, and that man seriously saved me from hunger, because I was hungry a lot. I was training jiu-jitsu. I was burning a lot of calories. I was a blue belt and, living in a gym and things like that. And I mean, there was a lot of times where I went to bed hungry. So to finally be able to get some food and things like that was awesome. I got canned food. I was excited. I mean, it was beans, but dude, I was excited for those beans. You know what I mean? It was like rice, but dude, it was great. And then for the money that I did make from my jobs, I had 3 jobs. I was the teaching job, the jiu-jitsu job, Old Navy, and Skechers. So I was working 3 jobs, and and all that money had to go to my books, my tuition. It's expensive, dude. For one book, it's $250.
Oh yeah. School books are crazy. Yeah.
Dude, a parking pass it's now I think it's $350 now, but back then it was $278. So it's a lot of money. So all my money was getting taken, and then there were times for a long time where I couldn't even afford the tuition for my jiu-jitsu training. And my coaches were very kind enough to talk to the managers or even help me out and say, hey, you know what? Just show up to class.
Yeah. What do you think? What kept you going? How did you keep yourself from developing a victim mindset, but instead, where did the hunger come from?
Silva. That was all that mentality. Just don't make excuses. Figure it out. That was his thing. He says that a lot. Find a way or find an excuse. But he would say, figure it out. Whenever we mess up on the mat, pull me aside or any of us aside and say, hey, figure it out. Figure it out. Hey, don't make any excuses. So for me, it was more figure it out, find a way. That was his thing, find a way. So for me, I had to find a way, and I found a way. Believe me, if you're going to find a way to make an excuse, or if you're going to find a way to feel like a victim, you're going to find that reason. People have this victim mindset now. Oh, someone's being mean to me. Oh, someone, no. I mean, life doesn't care about your problems. And you have to have that mentality where okay, well, if you have absolutely nothing, what are you going to do about it? But like, there's people that complain about like, oh, well, woe is me, I have a job, but woe is me, it's so hard. I don't care, dude. Try living in your Nissan Versa, hatchback, next to like a row full of RVs, hearing strange noises and like, just like worrying if someone's gonna like break your window and like, like try to rob you. It's like, worry about that stuff. Worry about like if you have no money to like pay your bills. Worry if you're about to like, if you have absolutely no roof over your head. Like, what are you gonna do about it? Like, what are you gonna do about it? Find a way. And like, there's people that have all those resources and they still complain. So that's why I kind of laugh when like I see people like just, they give you a sob story and it's like, dude, you have a roof over your head. You got food in the refrigerator. You got parents that care about you and love you. It's like, I'm sorry. It just seems to me like you're trying to become a victim. And if that's the case, then I don't know. Some people don't have time for that.
Yeah. You had mentioned that your guy, Scott Glab, is a man of faith. Mm-hmm. Are you a man of faith?
Absolutely. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I believe that I am a man of faith, and I would not be where I'm at today if it wasn't for my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. That's the truth. That's the honest truth. Every day, it's kind of one of those things where you have to, you got to pray in those dark places. Like all I could do is pray. All I could do is pray when things were going great, and you pray where things are going bad. I don't know if you look up, but if you look at our logo at Hybrid, it's me. It's me with pointing to the sky. And I'm not gonna lie, I actually didn't want that for my logo. No. I know my friend, the designer who designed it, Avi, love you, man. He was my designer. He created it for me, and it was his idea. And he brought it to me and said, like, I think this looks cool with you on it, with putting your finger up. And I'm like, I don't know about that, dude. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just insecure, or maybe just like, I'm subconscious. But he just said like, I don't know if I like that. I was like, why not? It's like, well, because it's me up there. It's like I look funny. Look at my head, like I look weird.
Maybe it's just humility. Yeah. You mentioned that you're married and you have a new child, or yeah. Well, tell me about your family a little bit.
Yeah. So that's one thing that a lot of people really don't know about is my family, things like that. Obviously, because of my Instagram, it's more of like an athlete page.
There's nothing there. Yeah. I was looking for it.
Oh, yeah. No, I do have a private page.
I was like, this guy looks like a guy who's got a family. But I don't see it.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's important. Yes. But yeah, I have a wonderful wife. She's amazing. I met my wife when I was very close to graduate from college. She met me when I had nothing. Absolutely nothing. And, she stuck with me when there was no food in that fridge, and she would go and buy me for food. So I would say most women, they ran. Like the moment they knew that like I lived in a gym, or they knew that I was, that I didn't have any food, or like I lived out of my car, dude, they just like bolted. They wouldn't give me the time of day, but not her. She was amazing. She would always ask me, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? And I said like, well, I want to finish school first off. She's like, but I want to be a world champion. I want to be a world champion. Because at that point, I was so far into jiu-jitsu where like I was contending and competing and winning world championships. Like I want to be a world champion, and maybe I want to run my own gym one day. And so I already knew what I wanted to do. I already knew where I was going, and I knew with the right woman, there's no stopping me. So she understood that, and she knew what kind of man I was from the beginning. She saw I was very driven, and she saw that I had nothing, and that I was still not willing to stop. I was still going to keep going. So since then, we've been together. And
how many years you guys been married?
Oh, we've been married overall for about 2.5, almost 3 years. Okay. But together, like almost a decade.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, she's amazing. And then we have a beautiful son. We have a little boy.
With the Rick Jr.
No. His name's Zachary. Zachary. Yeah. But no, we don't. I tried to give him Rick Jr. My wife wasn't having it. Yeah. My wife wasn't having it. Yeah, but no, I got a little boy now. And he's the love of my life. Both of them are. And how
old is Zachary?
He's 1.5. Actually, he's approaching 2 now. So he's technically almost his birthday is coming up in the summertime. So he's going to be approaching 2. But I would say right now, 1.5 right now.
So you're a young dad.
Yeah, I'm a new young dad. Yeah.
What was it like being a dad for the first time?
Unbelievable. It's a feeling. I mean, I can try to describe it, but I don't know if it do it justice. But it changes you. It brings out a whole new level of humanity into your life, and also you tend to sweat the small things, because you don't before the things we used to sweat over, because I understand you're a dad too, right? Yeah. So the things that we used to sweat over, we don't, and the things we once cared for, we don't. Things become different in terms of our priorities. It unlocks a whole new level of love inside of your heart, and you have this compassion and you have this empathy that you can't quite put your finger on, but it's I feel like it 100% made me a better human being. My son has made me the best version of myself, without a doubt. He's made me. I feel like he's the part that I've been. Him and my wife are the parts that I've been missing out of my life. And so I would not be where I'm at today, and would not be the man I am if it wasn't for them. I can't picture my life without them. My family is like my priority. My family is my all, and I'm so very happy to have them, because they support me, and they love me and things like that. But most of all, for me, the coolest thing ever was to be able to share this with them. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, last year I competed at Nogi Worlds, and back then it used to be either me flying solo to go to these tournaments, weight cutting, all that kind of stuff. Now I took me and my wife, and then now we take our son. So now my son is part of this journey. Yeah. And last year we were at the Airbnb. We were getting ready for the tournament. The night before the tournament, I was cutting weight.
What city were you?
Where were Vegas.
Vegas,
yeah, for Nogi Worlds last year. So this is where I finally was able to make that cut to featherweight, because before I was fighting at lightweight the whole year, and finally we're consistent. Like, our diet is religious. Like my wife preps the meals. She's an amazing, she's not a nutritionist, but she's an amazing cook, but she does her homework. So that's the one thing. When I met my wife, I was able to just win every division just because she prepped my meals. So we had everything down to a science, and we were ready to go, and we had this cut, perfectly planned. And then sure enough, we took, when we traveled to Vegas at the Airbnb, we had a sauna there, and we took our own little portable sauna, and I was in the sauna kind of cooking for a bit, and then my wife was there just with our son playing, and then you see him just kind of like tapping the sauna, like, daddy, just like, what are you doing in there? What are you doing? I want to go in there. And I'm just sitting there, and it's just like, it's the coolest thing, because I'm here fighting for this title, getting this grind on. And then here I am, my boys watching me do it. And then my wife captured a pretty cool picture of it, to be honest with you, because after I got out of the sauna, I went right into the shower, with my towel, to kind of just sit there and just kind of put it over my head to kind of just keep myself heated. So I was all wrapped up like a mummy in the shower, and there was no water running. I was just sitting in there, just kind of just letting the heat settle in. And then my son just kind of crawls up to me, and then he just kind of extends his hand to me, like, daddy, what are you doing? He's putting his hands on me and things like that. And I'm just looking at him like, hey, bud. And that's when I looked at him and I said, tomorrow we're going to win this thing. I looked at him, we're going to win this thing tomorrow. And my wife was she took a picture. I looked at him like, yeah, that's right, boy. I'm like, we're going to win this tomorrow. And that's exactly what happened. The next day, I went the entire tournament unscored on. I dominated that division. I ended up winning my third IBJJF Nogi World title, second at brown belt. And it was just great. I felt great. To win it in front of my son, to win it in front of my family was just the best feeling in the world, And to be able to see them watch me compete and just see them cheering for me on the sidelines, it's the best feeling in the world. It's I don't think, I can't explain it. It's just the coolest thing ever, and I can't wait to just see where this goes. You know what I mean? Whether it's me one day watching him, or the goal is to win Master Worlds. But but like I said, but I know it gives me more something to look forward to, and I would say it's looking forward to now watching him go out there and do his thing, and whatever it is he wants to do in life. He doesn't have to do jiu-jitsu, but he's going to be doing it. Whether it's wrestling, jiu-jitsu, basketball, whatever. It's I just want him to be happy,
right?
And it's just the best feeling in the world.
Does he have his own little no-gi pajamas?
He actually does have a gi. He does have a gi. I have taken pictures and videos with him with the gi.
That's great.
No, we have a whole library, of him. It's a whole I don't know. We must have used up all our cameras and all our phones and things like that. Just because that's the thing. This time goes by so fast. They grow so fast. They do. Yeah. I mean, you get it. And it's for me, it's one thing. A friend of mine told me, says, take as much pictures, as much videos as you can. because pretty soon they're this small, and then now all of a sudden, boom, they're tall. They have full head of hair. They're just like all over the place. They're talking to you. Like right now, he's using his words now, and he's like starting to like just say more things and stuff like that. And it's really cool to see him. Like he can say daddy now. Before you were just saying dad, now it's daddy.
And then, he must be walking.
Oh yeah, dude, he's running, he's climbing. I don't know why, but one day he decided to swan dive off the couch, and I like had to be like Odell Beckham, just like, no. So I caught him, but like, oh my goodness. Now he's just wrestling me. He just comes up and just climbs behind me, starts jumping on me. We start wrestling. We start watching WWE. We watch UFC together. We watch IBJJF. We watch all these cool things. I take him for walks regularly. I spend a lot of time with him, and I mean, he's, he's the love of my life.
What's next for you, Rick?
I would say right now, I just want to continue to get better. I just want to continue to improve in every aspect of my life, not just jiu-jitsu, but beyond jiu-jitsu, more like as a father, as a coach, but most of all, passing the torch and just helping the next generation get better. I have a lot of students at Hybrid Academy. We're we're a little over 100. And so for me, the goal is, as and always will be, to always just pass the torch on and help them become better versions of themselves. My students are awesome. I love seeing them grow. I love seeing them get better. And we have a batch of students right now where they're just, it's just the culture we're building. They love jiu-jitsu. And I'd like to think that, I'm very passionate about jiu-jitsu. I'm very passionate about teaching. And I hope they see that when they attend my class. I try to make every class as exciting and as fun as possible, because that's one thing I do. Like when I go to AOJ, like I love to learn. Like, man, dude, Tynan Dalpra is my morning instructor. Man, this is Professor Gee. This is like being around these men of just so much knowledge and just so much experience. And I just want to share that experience with my students. I want them to learn and just have fun and enjoy. So I want to become the very best coach I can be. I want to become the very best father I can be, the very best husband I can be, everything. I want to make sure that all the lessons that I've accumulated over my life, that it gets applied to every aspect of my life: employee, coach, husband, father, friend. That doesn't mean I don't make mistakes, but at least I'm willing to admit, do better.
I want to thank you for coming on my show, and I want you to know that I'm proud of you, that what you're doing for our society out there, coaching and making a difference in our communities, it does not go unrecognized. I hope that I have you on the show again. And Rick, Arreola, man.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. God bless you, everyone.